Hello, everybody. My name is Brother Ming, and welcome to my Kickstarter. My first Kickstarter as a publisher, and my first original game completely. No shenanigans here. This is a fully original IP called The Arts of War, and this has been the culmination of about I want to say 6 years of work, over 6 years of work, and I really hope you like what you see. This was not an easy journey to get to, and I've learned a lot getting to this destination. Um, from working on Anna's Roundtable, then Persona 5, the fan game, and now Genshin Tarot, I basically have learned everything I need to be a publisher, and here I am publishing Chris Lynn's design that I found 3.5 years ago at Proto ATL. And so, yeah, I hope you like it. I hope you back it. I hope you decide to try it out either on digital, screen top or tabletop simulator. And I want to take this opportunity to just a little bit talk a little bit about myself, because I think a lot of people follow my projects, and I haven't really had a chance to really go over why I make board games. At least not on a proper platform like in a video. So yeah, I got into board gaming in college about 9 years ago, 10 years ago now, through BattleCon, Dominion and BattleCon. Those were the two games I played first. First, it was Dominion that we picked up at Barnes and Nobles, and it was amazing. I was like, whoa. And because I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh in high school, I loved card games. At the time I was playing Hearthstone, and discovering Dominion was like this gateway into a whole new world. And I think this is a pretty common story for a lot of people. But the second thing I picked up when I went back to Barnes and Nobles to look for other board games was BattleCon, because I am a giant anime nerd. So they had anime-ish aesthetic, art wise, and once I played it, I was obsessed. It was such a good game. It did everything in a physical card game the way that Hearthstone did in digital, in my opinion, which was really leverage the fact that you don't want to make a physical card game really complicated in terms of moving parts, but made sure that there was intensely interesting and difficult to make decisions. And I think that's probably a complaint for most people. It's very high analysis paralysis. But for me, I thought it was so good. It was so interesting. There was so much mind games and steps to think through. And I think people who loved BattleCon would agree. Marco notoriously has ranted about this multiple times. And so I got really into board games. But I had always thought I was going to make video games. At this time, I was playing a lot of board games, but I was obsessed with making video games. The idea of making video games. Because, all throughout high school, I had used RPG Maker XP, Game Maker, all those stuff. You won't find my projects because I refuse to. They're buried in links. You might if you dug through my website, but it's all kind of cringe. It's like 15 years old, right? Or late 2000s internet. Boy, if you weren't there, you weren't there. And I was convinced I was gonna make video games. In high school, I did summer school twice to learn programming, and even did like a video game boot camp at Duke University. And then in college, I studied computer science. I studied programming. I figured, to make video games, I'm gonna need to know how to program, and I was pretty good at it. And when I graduated college, I not go into games. I had the opportunity to. I was given job offers, including one at High Voltage, which at the time was a pretty big video game studio. This was just coming off of Saints Row 4, right? Was it 4 or 3? No, it was right off the Mortal Kombat 10 that they did. They did it for PC, the port, and it was a large company, and I had done multiple video game programming internships. I worked at Gameloft, which is a pretty good studio, not good, big studio that was doing a lot of mobile games. And yeah, I just couldn't do it. I graduated college, I had multiple offers, and I was just like, the pay is not there. The pay is garbage. This is not okay. Like I needed more money to survive, and I wasn't alone. I was living with my now wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time, and she wasn't a U.S. citizen. I wasn't a U.S. citizen either, but I got my green card that year, the year I graduated. And if I didn't get that green card, I probably would have had to go back to China personally. But I was lucky enough to get it, and my girlfriend decided to not go back to Thailand. She decided to stay in America with me. Because she wanted to stay with me. She wanted to stay in America. She wanted to pursue the dream, right? And we get money. There was no way I was going to be able to support the both of us while she tried to figure out what the next steps were. Working at a video game job as a video game developer, you know. And so I took a very, very boring 8-to-5 job writing code for an insurance company. It was very corporate, not a healthcare. You might have heard of them. They're a little evil. Yeah, so I was bored out of my mind working that 8-to-5 job. And I decided to start making card games. Now, I had spent my whole life thinking I'll make video games, and all of a sudden I was programming full-time during the day, and I just did not want to write code at home. And not only that, I realized how hard it was to make video games because I had done these internships, and I was like, there's no way I can make a video game on my own. It just wasn't possible. It just wasn't gonna happen. Like, it's so much work. You know, I'm not Toby Fox. I'm not one of these geniuses, right? I can write some code, but I'm not gonna be able to write a whole game on my own. That was never. Maybe I've always using a game maker, like RPG Maker, but it was just a lot of work, and I decided I'll just make card games for fun. And I did. I made a lot of card games, and they were all complete garbage. And at the same time, I became addicted to Fire Emblem Heroes. Fire Emblem is my favorite video game series of all time. I grew up playing it. I got my first copy of Fire Emblem on the Game Boy Advance when we were evacuating from Hurricane Katrina. So it has a very deep roots in me. It was the first video game I really owned, and I played the crap out of it while school wasn't available, and we were like, a state over from where we evacuated from, staying at a Motel 8, getting food from FEMA and stuff. And yeah, so Fire Emblem has this deep roots in me. I played every single one since the Game Boy Advance trilogy, and the 2. And I played 6 on a ROM later on, college. Played several fan games, Lost Promise, etc., etc. And Heroes was addictive. I became gacha addicted. I was making money at this point, not a ton. I wasn't rich. Supporting both me and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and but I played that game so much, and I was like, I want to spend money on it. I want to get all my characters. So I started budgeting for it. I would say, okay, I'll play. I'll spend $20 a week. I'll skip some lunches. I'll pack my lunches, and I'll put money into this game. It got way out of hand. Eventually, $20 a week, $100 a month. Played it for a year and a half. Blink of eye, $1,500 gone. I looked at it and I looked back. I was like, $1,500 is absurd. How could I be spending almost $2,000 on a stupid mobile game? I understand it. I don't. It brought me a lot of happiness. I think it's a coping mechanism for a lot of people, and I think gacha games are healthy if you approach it the right way. And I think it wasn't super healthy. But eventually what happened was I wanted more. I just wanted to interact with the game some more. And I realized the graphics of the game and the arts that came with the game, and the fact that I was making all these shitty card games, I could just put those things together and make a card game of Fire Emblem Hero. That's what I did. I downloaded our asset rip that somebody had been maintaining on Reddit, had all the art in it. I decided to put them in cards, come up with some rules, and made a fan game and put it onto Reddit. And that went pretty good. Everybody seemed to like it, surprisingly. And there's some good memes of like, oh man, this card game is really cool. I can't wait to play the mobile version or digital version of it. the digital version of the physical version of the digital version. But I decided to just keep going with that, kept making, more cars. That game was garbage. Anybody who printed it and played it and said they like it was lying. That game was complete garbage. But what happened was about a year after I started that project, Kotaku made an article about it. And that kind of like flipped my life upside down. I was out grocery shopping at a Hong Kong supermarket, and my phone started just going off like crazy. My Facebook page, everybody was tagging me in it, and like it was on Kotaku, and at the time, I was selling handmade print and play versions of my game. The print and play was free to download; anybody could download it. But I would sell, like, if somebody wanted basically on-demand commission, they pay me $28. I would print out the game, glue it together, and ship it to them. I'd sold like 6 copies, and I thought it was cute. I was like, whoa, somebody wanted to buy something from me. It was amazing feeling. Well, that Kotaku article blew up my website. I sold way too many. I think it was like 150 copies. And that was ridiculous. And I wasn't gonna sit there and hand make 150 copies of this game. So that was step 1 of my journey to now. And it was realizing that, okay, well, I need to print these. But I used on-demand printers. They were very expensive. I lost a bunch of money on this project, but I was really, really grateful for the experience, I think. And it was really cool to see a bunch of people tell me that, hey, you should look into actually, make a real board game. The board game market's vibrant, it's growing. Kickstarter is like going off. Like plenty of indie game makers are, achieving their dreams. So I said, yeah, screw it. Let me look up the closest convention to me. And that was Proto ATL. I went to the first Proto ATL, the first real Proto ATL. They had one before the year that I went. That was really just a convention in like a hotel lobby, and it was like 20 people. But the first real one, they booked out PSI, which was a local fulfillment center that did a lot of fulfillment on board games, and they booked out their event space or their office space. It was like 70, 80-ish people, and it was amazing. It was the coolest thing I had ever been a part of. I brought a prototype for an original game I was working on at the time that I called Marble Fighters, Puzzle Strikers, Strikers, whatever. It was a marble fighting puzzle game. And I met a bunch of people that I still talk to now. I met Sinfon Lim there. I met Jason. I met Dan from Layman Games. And I met Gates Dowd at that first Pro ATL, and all industry people. And I was encouraged to really pursue my original designs. Now, if you've been following me since Fire Emblem and the rest of the story, you probably would be familiar with. The puzzle game was signed to Jason with Big Kid Games / Penguin Panda as Sento. We did a bunch of marketing, we did a lot of art, we did a lot of touring at conventions, and the project itself is currently still in progress. It was on hold for about 2 years while he worked through his other projects, and it's been picked back up, but we'll see where that goes. And hopefully he's able to fulfill his previous projects and eventually publish Sento. But in the meantime, I continue working on my stuff. I continue working on Persona 5 as a fan game. I polished that, printed a couple copies, and now it's doing... I'm really proud of that design, actually. I redesigned Anna's Roundtable. And in between these, there was other projects, too. I made a Kogias card game, a Darling the Franks card game. Yeah, so with this Anna's Roundtable... when that happened, I wanted to redesign the Fire Emblem board game, because I had realized, as I had matured as a board game designer, that the original Fire Emblem board game was garbage. It was genuine trash. It was not playable. You and your opponent had to draft 4 characters, and then you just played until you wiped out your opponent's team. It was garbage. It was so clunky, and I had these little like standee cards you had to find for each character, and it was impossible to like organize. And yeah, so it was a nightmare. I was not a fan of it. So I got to work redesigning it. I made several prototypes. I tested it at AWA, Anime Week in Atlanta. I got a ton of good feedback to the point where I was like, okay, this is actually playable. I went through, I think, like 5 different variations, prototypes. I started off with the idea of capturing a center, King of the Hill. I moved towards the idea of, instead of cards to represent the unit that you actually played, you were locked to only 3 units of different colors. That way you never had 2 units of the same color. You can represent your units that way with color-coded meeples. And then I moved on to figuring out how to make the back and forth more interesting. I added a shop system with coins, and then I added the Dragon Vein system, and then it just really glued together. There was a couple extra systems that I added that I cut, but yeah, at one point it was like a race to first to 20 points, and yeah, I was really excited about it, and I posted about it on my Twitter at this point, and I emailed out my mailing list being like, hey, I'm revamping the Fire Emblem board game. I'm gonna be making an upgrade kit, so you can upgrade whatever your old copies with this, so that it won't play like ass. And Soren, who was a fan of my Persona 5 game, saw it because he was on my mailing list. And through the magic of Twitter, we connected over that, and I asked him if he wanted to draw some cards for Anna's Roundtable for Fire Emblem, the board game, because he was an artist. He did a bunch of Fire Emblem Three Houses fan art. And he was ecstatic. He was super on board, got to work immediately, and then within a week, recruited like a dozen of his artist friends to join the project as well. Yuzia was one of the first. He did Lysithea in the base game. And yeah, it was wild. It grew so fast that within a month we had decided to open up artist applications. We had over 500 applicants or something like that. And it was genuinely insane to see all of this interest in turning my silly little fan game into something way bigger than it had any right to be. And credit where credit's due. Soren basically helped me get things off the ground. And I think it was really, things were right. It was the right time for the project, because the fanzine scene, especially the fanzine scene for Fire Emblem Three Houses, had exploded. Like, there were so many fanzines and Fire Emblem fan artists just wanting to participate in projects. And so yeah, after a lot of work, like 3 years of work, Anna's Roundtable was finished. It was published, it was printed, it was shipped. It was shipped from China to me at the height of the freight cost. You look at the cost of freight, it was shipped to me back in January of 2022. And freight cost me $20,000. But today, it would only cost me like $3,000 to $4,000, which is absurd. I hate myself. I was in the red again for this project for quite a while. When the project first landed, I was in the red. I was down by about $5,000. But thankfully, I had extra copies, and since then, I've sold those extra copies. And I'm back in the green, and I did a little coffee drive, and you guys gave me like $800 to just help me cover the initial upfront cost, because I was worried. I was a little worried. Definitely a little worried. But I had, at this point, I'm an adult. I make money. I have a stable job. Still writing software, and I'm not gonna lie. Computer science jobs pay decently, so I wasn't too worried. I was worried for the fact that, like, holy, what am I doing? I'm in over my head. But I wasn't worried like, oh, this is gonna financially ruin me. No, but I was still so grateful. Everybody just helped out, and Anna's Roundtable is now out in the wild. People play it, people like it. I'm proud of that game. I think I have my regrets about the production, the color accuracy on the cards. I shouldn't have used plastic cards. The hubris in me thought plastic was cool, and it would make it a super, super cool project if the cards are plastic. Retrospect never do classic cars. They're hard to color grade and they're just darker. And this is not good. No, what's the point? And the game, of course, also wasn't perfectly balanced. We've done multiple online tournaments since. The game has been much better balanced than the digital version, and we're gonna reprint it, make it more balanced. But yeah, like, I'm very proud of it. The game itself, like, you know, balance and color issues aside, it's a good game. I'm proud of it. The boss mode is pretty good, except for the Nemesis one. The Nemesis fight, I should have spent more time on that one. I will admit, but the other ones, they're very good. You know, the content isn't perfect, but the design is really solid. I'm very happy with that design. And so I kept going. As I was finishing Adam's Roundtable, I was also designing. I started designing Genshin Taro. I was wrapping up Sento, and then I met Chris Lin, the designer for React. We met up at a Proto ATL. I had become a huge fan of that convention. It's great. If you are in the Atlanta area, you're a budding board game designer, you should come to Proto ATL. It's the best convention for budding designers that could possibly exist. It is 3 full days of non-stop playtesting and just learning from each other. And a ton of publishers attend, and you'll get to meet a bunch of publishers and industry insiders and just learn so much. Anyways, yeah, so I met Chris Lin at the last one, or 2 before, not the last one. Back in I think March or February of 2020, so almost 3 years ago. And we started working on React together. He, at the time, called the game Shobu, and it was a TCG killer. He was designing it to be a TCG. And I think, like a lot of budding board game designers, they want to design a TCG because it's the most fun, is what you know. And he was like 4 years into it at that point. And it was a really solid game. It was this Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a dueling game, but it had a grid element on it. And the deck building aspect was interesting, but more interesting was this idea of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Effect chains that resolved itself on a grid, which had never existed before. And I still think it's entirely unique. No other game does this. So we just, I decided to be, hey, I'm getting published with Jason for Sento. Spoiler alert, I didn't. But at the time, I thought I was getting published. And I have learned everything I need to learn to be a publisher with, Anna's Roundtable. Let me publish this game for you. Let's work together. And being a publisher is weird because you're 1 part co-designer, 1 part developer, 9 parts project manager. And so I basically had to wrangle this design from this TCG into a very streamlined, palatable board game experience. And Chris adapted and slowly learned what makes a board game more a board game rather than a TCG. And credit where credit's due, his card effect level design is really, really good. He's very good at designing card level effects. And more importantly, my best friend, Eric Zerain, he was the best man at my wedding, and I was his best man at his wedding. And he is really good at games. And he helped wrangle this design even further and make sure it's balanced and played it thousands of times. And now we have a product that I am very proud of. React is amazing. It's gorgeous, thanks to the art of Wicked Card, Ian, and Pat Lockstix. 2 people I consider good friends of mine now. I've worked with them on my fan projects, and thanks to their art, this game just looks absolutely gorgeous. Thanks to Jules to give us this very clean aesthetic, this very clean, minimalistic graphic design that just complements the gorgeous art. It doesn't distract from it at all. I love minimal design. And, it's been 3 years. I met Chris 3 years ago, and here we are, where we're at the finishing line, right? Or at the starting line of the finishing leg of the race, where we are on Kickstarter asking for your support. And I imagine if you watch 25 minutes of this, of me rambling about my life, you will have given me money. So thank you so much, because I don't think people realize how hard it is to make a original board game. I mean, I think they do, but because of how big board gaming as an industry has become, I think it's become really easy to become desensitized to how big these Kickstarters are, how big some of these publishers are. When in reality, like, the vast majority of publishers are super small. They're like I'm a one-man operation, and most publishers, even on Kickstarter, are like 1 to 3 people, right? Like they're very tiny. Without Kickstarter, without, you know, people able to directly support us, they just wouldn't exist. Like, I could never take this directly to retail. Like, it's just too niche, and it just costs too much to market. And without the proof in the pudding, all right, of people actually showing us interest, there's just no way it could exist. I mean, yeah, of course, Kickstarter does have all these crazy big projects, especially anything with miniatures in it, by humongous companies that now treat Kickstarter basically as a interest-free loan program. But, you know, the projects like mine and like many of my peers, I think I speak on behalf of all of them. Thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. I basically, you know, talked as much as I can about my life, how I've gotten to this point, and how much React means to me. It means so much more than just a single project. This is the project that I've dreamed about for the last 6 years. You know, when I first started on this Roundtable, I was like, if I can get people to like my designs, I can eventually make an original game and put that on Kickstarter. And then I can make an original board game with an original anime cast, and it'll be amazing. Because, you know, just like artists, when you try to grow as an artist, you don't draw OCs, you draw fan art. You can draw OCs, but it's very difficult. So I decided to draw fan art. I did fan games. And I've been working towards this step by step, year by year, month by month, for the last 6 years. And here we are. An original game. You know, there was some setbacks with Sento. I thought that was going to be it. But instead, I'm publishing my own, right? I'm publishing it myself. And here we are. React is here. Please back it. Please support it. Please tell everybody you know about it. Send it to your friends. Email it to your grandma. Print out a flyer. I don't know. Just help us make this game a success. Help me quit my job, because I want to become a full-time board game publisher. I want to make games. I want to make original characters. I want to make original worlds. And I want to make you guys proud, and I want to bring people joy with games. So hopefully this is the end of the video. I'm not going to keep on rambling. Almost 30 minutes long. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.